moving on, and our next speaker today is Susan Marshall, who is an adjunct professor of 20th century fashion in the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York, at Milan Polytechnic, and lectures on costume design and history of fashion at AFOL Moda Milan, working as a costume designer with Theater Experience, whose I think is house, Copenhagen, La Dual Band Milan, and the prison theatre company Punto Zero in Milan. She recently completed a practice-based PhD at Goldsmiths University of London in the Theatre and Performance Department with a thesis on insubordinate costume, exploring the pivotal role of scenographic costume in performance and the fundamental importance of play in the performance creative approach to the costumes. And she is currently writing a book on insubordinate costume, which is to be published with Routledge in early 2024. Today, Susan will talk on her ongoing project, Constructed, Deconstructed, Reconstructed, and this talk will be followed by a surprise performance.
Thank you, Luda. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for the really interesting talks, and thank you for the organisation. So today I would like to discuss the research project which began with my PhD at Goldsmiths University with Anne first, down here, and Luda was my external examiner, so they know something already about this. As the fashion industry begins to take sustainability and ethics more seriously, it's perhaps important to note that theatre costumes have always been modified, recycled, upcycled for different productions, even in an important opera houses like Covent Garden or La Scala. As a costume designer maker, I work with a number of small theatre companies and 2 prison theatre groups, so there's not very much budget. My designs are usually restricted by directorial demands, the budget, and time, because time is always a question in this. So I create kind of a dressing up box for the companies I design for, with garments and accessories that can be used and reused time and time again. Recycling and upcycling are fundamental aspects of my design ethos, as well as, wherever possible, ecological and sustainable choices regarding materials I use. Biodegradable materials, unbleached cotton, offcuts of fabric, natural dyes. While working as a practitioner, I became interested in performative costume, where costume is the starting point for performance rather than something that dresses the actors. This type of costume demonstrates the power of costume as a research tool and the different ways costumes can be used to dramaturgy, as well as the possibility it offers to subvert traditional hierarchies and override fixed boundaries. For my practice-based PhD, I looked at historical and contemporary examples of the type of costume that is the starting point for a performance rather than text or predefined choreography. I was particularly interested in how playful these costumes appeared and looked at different theories of play in relation to costumes performance. Play is intrinsically linked to experiment, exploration, research, discovery and learning. Even Jung said, the creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct acting from inner necessity. The creative mind plays with the objects it loves. As part of my practice research, I looked at origami techniques and children's construction toys such as Lego or Froebel's gifts. I was interested in developing costumes that could be transported easily in a suitcase because I'm based in Italy and my PhD was in London, and I also worked with a company in Denmark, so it was fundamental. So I developed the idea of using modular costume pieces which can be constructed in various ways in order to form 3-dimensional sculptural shapes that offer numerous dramaturgical and aesthetic possibilities. The modular costume pieces for my practice research were made from recycled paper, unbleached cotton calico, washable stone paper, which is made from calcium carbonate powder blended with small amounts of recycled high-density polyurethane resin, and this renders it waterproof and tear-resistant. Most modules are punched with holes to allow the pieces to be joined in numerous different ways through twisting, folding, and connecting with split pins, string, or elastic. The crinoline modules continued with a flat pack module theme and were based on the idea of Victorian crinolines, which use boning to form a three-dimensional shape when held up, but which collapses upon itself to lie flat. The crinolines are different sizes and shapes, ranging from a giant 4-meter tubular structure to a tiny version that fits on 2 fingers. Most have open-ended zips so they can be zipped together or to each other. In the 1998 Dictionary of Theatre Terms, Concepts and Analysis, theatre researcher and theorist Patrice Pavis describes the search for a minimal costume with multiple meanings of variable geometry that redivides and represents the human body in a different way, a phoenix costume that would be a true intermediary between body and the object. Perhaps modular costumes can fit this criterion. In order to research the dramaturgical potential of my modular costumes, I organised workshops with both single performers and small groups in Italy, Britain and Denmark. These are photos from the workshops with Goldsmith's MA performance making students. Creative play is the central feature of my costumes, which are neither decorative nor narrative, but modular puzzles without a single solution. By playing with the modular costumes, exploring and investigating their mechanisms, performers discover the different creative possibilities they can offer. Modular costumes unfold new worlds. The costumes open up, become three-dimensional, connect, bend, move, metamorphose, and reveal new possibilities, shifting human centrality towards a co-creativity between object and body. My modular insubordinate costumes can be constructed, deconstructed, reconstructed in numerous different combinations and variations, constantly recycled and recyclable. The modular pieces connect to each other and to the body in movement in a collaborative synergy, which is both visual and sensorial. Originally developed to investigate how costume has the ability to act as an impetus for creativity, theatre making and dramaturgy, the concept of construction module can also be proposed in the context of fashion. Modules which can be joined in different ways to create different three-dimensional shapes or potentials, which fulfill the persistent desire for change within the fashion industry, whilst the recyclable nature remains an ethical choice and a powerful form of everyday creativity. I've made a few circular modules in fabric here, in black crinoline. I think they could also be made in different fabrics. It was just and remnants of things. I just thought I'll make them in this and I'll bring them along so that everyone can have a play later. I haven't decided how to fix them together yet, so I've got some safety pins, but please have a go later. The workshops with Danish actress and dancer Tilda Knudsen at Asterian Schools in Copenhagen led to a non-verbal production of Alice in Wonderland, which has been performed both online and live in Denmark, Italy, UK, Germany, Netherlands, Croatia, Spain, all over. And it's proving that the modules have the ability to extend beyond the experimental workshop context. Tilda and my collaboration continues, and we've worked on 2 further projects. These are some of the experiments that we did, and these are some of the final pieces that actually came out of it that became Alice in Wonderland. Some you might recognise and some you might not recognise as the characters. Although my doctoral research concluded with the production of Alice, my collaboration with Tilda and Asterian Schools continued firstly in August 2021 with the White Lady of Lisbon, and presently with another project, the Pocket Project. The production of the White Lady of Lisbon was organised by Asterian Schools together with 40 students from the Roskilde Theaterhögskolan, the theatre high school, in the romantic landscape development of Lisbon Castle on the island of Møn in Denmark. The performance was about Lady Martha of Lisbon, a 19th century woman who lived independently as Lady of the Manor, surrounded by literary figures and a beautiful park filled with a collection of tamed white animals. The costumes for the production of the White Lady were inspired by the story of Marta and by nature, and were connected to the things I observed when visiting the park at Lisbon. The different leaves, a running peacock, a giant mushroom, seeds, the wrinkled bark of a tree. I looked at the shapes and structures and devised new modular costume pieces made of strong waterproof blind fabric and corset boning that are symbolic rather than realistic. There was no set way to wear the modular pieces, and the students were encouraged to play and experiment with the costumes and to find actions that reflected their given theme. Rather than following a plot, the performance involved a series of moving sculptural figures who created tableaux in different areas of the park. My current collaboration with Tilda is in the early experimental stages. The performative pocket project was partly inspired by the cocoon and fortune teller modules of my PhD research. These two modules can be seen as containers of objects or unseen messages, just like pockets. For hundreds of years, women wore a separate pocket or pair of pockets tied around their waists, hidden under their skirts. These were often beautifully embroidered and held all kinds of objects, from sewing kits to money and jewellery, from keys to love letters. Pockets contain intimate secrets and personal stories, and it is here that the idea for a performance began. The history of the pocket is fascinating, full of secrecy, questions of equality and subversion, as Ariane Fennetot and Barbara Burnham's fascinating book, The Pocket, A Hidden History of Women's Lives, illustrates. While men's clothes already began to have pockets sewn into waistcoats, coats and breeches in the 17th century, women's clothing frequently doesn't have pockets even today. It has been suggested that pockets also have political significance, being outlawed from women's clothing during the French Revolution to keep women from concealing revolutionary material, and becoming a symbol of independence and rebellion for the suffragettes, who shared pattern-making instructions on how to sew pockets into their clothing. Pockets are usually considered in the framework of fashion, an item of clothing stitched into trousers or onto a jacket. But my intention was to remove pockets from this context and uncover their performative qualities. I started to make different sized pockets in nylon crinoline, taking inspiration from the shape of the 18th century embroidered pockets and pannier pockets, the latter reinforced with nylon boning. The effect is semi-transparent, so the secrets inside are not completely hidden and not completely seen. The pockets continue with the modular theme of my insubordinate costume modules. They connect to each other via small loops sewn in the top corners. They move in symbiosis with the performer's body. Each pocket can contain a unique secret, an object, or a written story which can be used to recount episodic tales. These tales may be small and personal, or more widely historical, humorous, or tragic, exploring women's lives through the contents of their pockets. The dramaturgical possibilities are multiple, as the objects and stories contained inside the pockets can be changed and adapted to suit different performances. The pockets are connected to the performer's body, to movement, to the performance, to women's history. In Vibrant Matter, The Political Ecology of Things, Jane Bent refers to the new materialism theory of thing power, where an assemblage of human and non-human elements has greater power when working in unison. The inanimate performative pockets and the animate body are connected, entangled elements which interact to generate performance. The modular costumes are activated by the performers, but simultaneously the performers are activated by the costumes, which act like prosthetics, changing the body through extension. Tilda's first experiments involved movement and sound rather than developing a text or choreography at this stage. She played with the shapes of the flat pockets and placed small percussion instruments inside each of the pannier pockets. The metallic sound of the instruments contrasts with the apparent weightlessness and transparency of the pockets. After these first experiments, we decided to develop a project by making the pockets in black crinoline to contrast with the white ones and to add a third pocket shape. Obviously, my modules are a bit wacky, to use an academic and not particularly suited to everyday fashions. But I wanted to finish today by looking at some experiments in modular fashion. Modular fashion is also still considered a bit of a gimmick, but I believe it really has potential. The idea of modular fashion isn't new. In the Renaissance, sleeves were separate from the bodice, attached with decorative ribbons. People would gift sleeves because they were so expensive. And Henry VIII even sang about his green sleeves. Bundy's baby collection, which you can see here on the right, offers a similar style with interchangeable sleeves in different colours and fabrics, so the wearer can choose which combination to wear. These are attached with zips these days, not ribbons. In 2016, Raman and Gong explored various techniques for creating transformable clothing and investigated how different categories such as entrepreneurs, designers, professors and consumers respond to their perceptions of transformable clothing and issues of sustainability in China. The results showed that many consumers supported the concept of sustainable fashion as well as the idea of transformable garments, but that many professionals had numerous concerns regarding the production costs, practicality, adaptability and salient. With metabolism, in 2015, the experimental multidisciplinary designer Bolo Garland explored how computer-aided design and laser cutting can be used to create a new zero-waste fashion aesthetic through textile innovation. The project was inspired by a 1960s Japanese architectural movement of the same name, which explores the idea of connectedness of individuals within a larger system. Zero-waste modular box textile manipulation was developed in the collection together with zero-waste tab interlocking sling system. Most of the garments in the collection feature one or both of these textiles, allowing for easy disassembly and reassembly of complete garments, or customization to sections according to the wearer's preference. The pattern pieces interlock together in many different ways. Here's another slide of the collection. Levi Lemoria's modular clothing is entitled Skin, remember? She uses remnants of old fabrics to build a selection of patchwork garments made from interchangeable squares, which link together with frog fasteners and can thus be changed by the wearer. To finish with a quote from an interview with Levi Lemoria with Gabby Wilson, the idea blurs the lines between what is replaceable and irreplaceable. When one unit is too damaged or worn beyond repair, it can be exchanged without disrupting the essence of the garment. But these clothes can also be long-term homes for precious memories and favourite outfits of past experiences of people, in the same manner as an heirloom quilt, only continuous, limitless, and right there on your skin.